I woke up to cold. My wrists and ankles burned, bound tightly with ropes. Tola, what happened? What are we doing here? How did we get here? Where is Edie, Paul? I gasped. She sat beside me, taking in the condition we were in too, as confused and disoriented as I was. At that moment, we heard other screams. They were coming from somewhere beyond the room, perhaps a room next door. It was the sound of a woman begging for her life. Her voice was raw, desperate. I have money. I will give you money. A loud thud followed, then silence. I wanted to scream, but my throat tightened with fear. Beside me, Tola was crying. She reached for my hand, her fingers trembling. Uju, I am so sorry, she whispered, her voice thick with guilt. I shouldn't have made you come on this trip. Her tears were real, but they couldn't wash away the suffocating terror I was feeling. The day rolled into another in a blur of hunger and hopelessness. The captors rarely spoke to us, communicating only in sharp commands. They fed us scraps, chunks of stale hard bread and pure water. People were taken out every day, never to return. The screams that followed were blood-curdling, the kind that sank into your bones and stayed there, stealing the light from your soul. Fear and desperation to survive grew in people. There were constant wailing and pleas to be set free no matter the cost, but all fell on deaf ears. The evening of that second day, Tola confessed she had hepatitis. I'm going to die anyway, she said loudly, her voice trembling but strong. It is you I feel bad for, Uju. You don't deserve this. Her deeply emotional words landed like a hammer against stone. Heads turned. Even the two children near us, who barely spoke or moved, lifted their tired eyes towards her. Tola's hands trembled as she clasped them together, her eyes welling with tears. I'll die anyway, she said resignedly. Even if we escape, even if I make it out of here, it's already in my blood, this hepatitis. I was shocked to hear my friend had such a big burden on her. I tried to move closer to her. Tola, I began, but someone else also began talking at that moment. An older man, probably in his late 50s. His face was gaunt, his eyes sunken into his skull, but his voice carried weight. I have diabetes, he admitted. No insulin for weeks now. My legs are starting to swell. Look. He lifted his bound hand slightly as if to gesture towards his feet. Another person, a frail woman with cheeks hollowed by starvation, gave a small bitter laugh. Sickle cell na my own, no. Crisis, they come soon. I can feel it. My body, they pain me. I doubt, say they go even need to kill me, or I go just die on my own. One by one, others began to confess. Kidney disease, HIV, even tuberculosis. As if the atmosphere in the room was not already very despondent. Now this. I felt so bad for those very ill people, but even more so from my friend Tola. She was so young, so beautiful and vibrant. How could she be so sick? But she shouldn't give up. No one should. Health problems have solutions and not enough reason to resign to a fate of death in this terrible, terrible place. I swallowed hard. My voice felt trapped in my throat, but I had to say something. We have to keep hope alive and try to think of how to get out of this place, all of us. Tola looked at me, eyes gleaming with an emotion I couldn't quite process. Later that evening, the air inside the den grew colder and a hush fell over us as we heard approaching footsteps. Heavy, purposeful. They were coming to pick more people for the slaughter again. The door opened groaningly and 3 figures entered. Paul was one of them, Tola's boyfriend, the man who had smiled at us over dinner, who had made jokes we laughed at and poured us drinks. Here he was, examining Tola and I coldly along with the others, like we were nothing but slabs of meat on a chopping table at the abattoir. He nodded at Tola and began untying her. "Oh yeah." "No!" I screamed and moved closer to her protectively, but she didn't shrink back in fear like one would expect. Instead, she exhaled slowly and stood up. "Who are the misfits?" Paul addressed her. Tola shuffled her feet and threw a sharp nervous glance my way. "Hurry up and fill us in. Who are those with illnesses that we cannot use for the main work?" I was confused. What was he talking about? Why was he talking to Tola that way? Not like someone he wanted to kill, but rather like a partner who knew the details of their operations. "The old man in that corner has diabetes," Tola said, her voice eerily steady, different from the tone she had just moments ago when she confessed her health status. "That woman there, sickle cell. The guy behind her has HIV. The girl with the deep cough, tuberculosis." I began gasping like someone about to have a seizure. So intense was my shock at that moment. Tola was working with them. She had brought me here. She had been pretending all along. She had set me up for this. My stomach clenched so tightly I thought I would vomit. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her, and demand to know why. But my body felt frozen, trapped in a horror I couldn't comprehend. And I wasn't the only captive stunned by this unexpected turn of events. There were mumbles and fresh tears breaking out across the room. Paul nodded approvingly. "Well done, babe," he said. "We'll take out and dispose those chaff separately so they don't spoil business for us. Let's go." Without hesitation, Tola stepped forward and went out with Paul and his men, walking past me as if I didn't exist. She didn't even look back once. I had never experienced betrayal like that. I had trusted Tola. We were supposed to be as close as sisters. How could she do this to me? How could she sell me out like a cow to ritualists? Ha! Human beings are wicked, so wicked. I sobbed loudly. Tola! But I refused to let her evil win. I clung to the thought of escape stronger than ever. I could make it out of here alive regardless. I told myself, I would survive this. I would survive it. And I tried to make myself believe it. An opportunity soon came. While being led to the filthy spot we used for defecation and urination just outside the building that night, I spotted a shard of glass half buried in the dirt. The light of the kidnapper's torch had fallen on it briefly. I picked it up with my bound hands and slipped it into my mouth, ignoring the sharp sting as it cut my tongue. Back in the room, I walked in the darkness at what turned out to be an excruciatingly painful and difficult task. I walked the small piece of glass slowly around in my mouth until I was able to clench it between my teeth. Then I raised my bound hands to my mouth and slowly began sawing at the ropes around my wrist with it. The glass bit into my lips and skin as I did, but I kept going, as though possessed, until finally I was able to cut the rope completely. I was then able to pick up the glass and slowly, still but with more ease than before, cutting the ropes that loosely tied my feet together too. I freed the children next, whispering for them to stay quiet. When I tried to free the man after them, he panicked and started shouting, probably thinking it was one of the kidnappers due to the very dim lighting in the room. I had no choice but to run, grabbing the children with me. The door was not locked, most likely because everyone in the room was tied up, and we made our way out quickly, heading into the forest that surrounded the bungalow-like building we had been trapped in. The forest was a dense labyrinth of twisted branches and roots that grabbed at our feet. The children clung to me as we stumbled through the darkness, trying not to cry. Behind us, The ritualists cum kidnappers gave chase, their angry shouts closing in. My heart pounded, but I pushed forward, almost dragging the siblings. I was worried they would catch us or shoot us down at any moment. Just as I thought we were done for, as our little strength was fast running out and the kidnappers now at grabbing distance, we found ourselves on a tarred road. At that same moment, a bus came speeding out of the dark towards us with bright, blinding headlights. It missed hitting us by a very small breath, but hit two of our pursuers with a loud thump, sending them sprawling across the tarmac. The bus driver jumped out. "Waiting be this, God!" he shouted shakily. "Why you not enter road like that? They are kidnappers!" I immediately started screaming. "Please help us! More are coming, they will kill all of us! Please take us from here!" He didn't hesitate. He almost shoved us into the bus, jumped back behind the wheels, and sped away just as another of the kidnappers came rushing out of the forest and onto the road. The matter was reported to the police. The driver and I were able to give them description that helped them locate the den, arresting all the kidnappers and ritualists, except the two that were hit by the bus and lost their lives on the spot, and except Tola. Sadly, she was killed that night to make up for the supply gap due to my escape with the kids. Paul confessed to the press that he was the one who made that decision. Today, I am alive. The children I saved have been reunited with their families, which made me happier than anything else. A few people were also rescued from the den, those not yet killed by the kidnappers. My story exposed a powerful ritualistic cartel, and justice was served. But the scars remain, both on my body and in my heart. I tell this story not for sympathy, but to remind you all to be careful out there and watch who you trust.